How are we doing today? Well, this is a continuation of the last video, changing lines on the Homelite string trimmer. We're working on a carburetor, it's a Walbro carburetor. It's off of a Homelite ST145 Weed Eater string trimmer. Customer brought it in, complained it wouldn't start. We replaced the fuel lines. However, we noticed that the primer bulb is extremely hard. There's a real good chance that it's going to need a carburetor kit. Unfortunately for this customer, I had a kit on hand. We change a lot of, we do a lot of carburetor kits on small equipment due to the ethanol and the fuel. For those of you that don't know that the ethanol is extremely bad for small engines, it's very corrosive. It draws moisture on the aluminum. It dries out the diaphragm and the pump inside the carburetor. All the lines, all the rubber, all the vinyl and nylon, it just dries it out and eats it up. With that being said, we're going to dive into this. This is a pretty straightforward video. What we've got here, this is a Walbro WT carburetor. They're pretty common. This is a two-line setup. It has a primer bulb, your fuel line, your primer line. Let's get going. The first thing I like to do is I like to look inside the carburetor on the pump side. So what we'll do is we'll take the pump screw off and we'll open this up. And chances are when we get this apart, we're going to see that pump is hard. We have to be careful not to break anything as we take it apart. I always like to work on a clean surface. Working on weed eaters and chainsaws and mowers, especially the chainsaws, you can see that we use recycled cardboard. Most of the time it's a pizza box, or maybe we went to the grocery store and I ended up with a box from the grocery store or something of that nature. Usually cardboard is a good material to use. It absorbs any oil or any fluids that get spilled, and I can dispose of it. So we're going to peel this apart. Inside here, we notice right away this should be soft and flexible. And if you listen, you can hear it popping. That tells you right away it's not going to pump. What that does is the fuel gets in there, it pushes down on this lever, and it pulls the needle up off the seat. With that being hard, the impulse from the two-stroke engine isn't strong enough to manipulate that to let the fuel run in. So we know right away that that's bad. We're going to pull this needle out. These can be kind of tricky. Underneath this arm, there's a small spring. When you take this off, make sure you hold that down so you don't lose that spring, because you'll need that spring in a few minutes.
Hey Nash Country, it's Anna Marie with Nash FM 1025. We're all living through some seriously challenging times right now.
So there's our spring.
Keep playing the hit country music that you love.
And here's our arm. Be careful, this is not captive. This will fall off, and once it hits the floor, they disappear. I don't know where they go, but they go somewhere. There's our needle. I don't know if you can see this needle, but on the end of this needle, there is, I don't know if it's Tygon, I don't know what that material is on there. But what happens is it gets hard and brittle from the fuel, from the alcohol in the fuel, and it'll stick, causing it not to let fuel flow, or flow too much and flood the engine. We want to look at this real close. Inside here there's a check valve. So a lot of times I'll take a tip cleaner from a torch, and we can go through all the orifices and make sure they're clean, but we have to use super caution and not poke on this, because you can ruin the carburetor. A lot of times I'll take just a little bit of carburetor cleaner and spray them out. If we look down in here, we want to make sure that orifice is open, and it is. It looks good. It goes all the way through the other side, which is what we want. So now we're going to flip this over, and we're going to look at this side real close. I don't know if you can see this, but inside of here there's a screen. That fuel comes through here. That needle pulls up. The fuel flows past the needle and comes in through this screen. A lot of times this screen will gather contamination. More so in chainsaws for some reason. I think it's because guys don't have good air filters on their saws. But we take a pick and pick this out of here real gentle. And we'll set that to the side. And if we look in here, one of the first things we notice is we have this yellowy, sticky, gooey mess. What that is, that's varnish. That varnish is from the fuel that's turned bad. What we'll do is we'll just give this a quick spritz. You want to make sure you don't get this on your new parts either, because the carburetor cleaner will soften up and swell up the parts inside the non-metallic parts inside the carburetor. We can go ahead and push this tip cleaner through here, and it should come out the other side. Let's go through this way, it'll be a little easier. And it comes through, so we know that's open. And we'll blow a little more solvent through there, make sure we're good and clear, and we are. Now with that being said, we're going to take a rag and a little bit of carburetor cleaner. Don't use a knife or a screwdriver, and we want to clean all the black off of this. Sometimes a fingernail works really well, but we want to get that off of there. That's our sealing surface for our new gasket.
Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray.
If you have to scrub on it, you can use something soft, like a piece of Scotch-Brite pad. But don't scrape on it with a screwdriver or a pocket knife or something that's hard that's going to gouge this, because this is a sealing surface, so you want it relatively clean and free of imperfections. And after we do that, we'll wipe it off. It doesn't have to be 100%. Most of what you're seeing there, I don't even know if you can see it, but there is a little bit of black still there. In some spots, you can't feel it. It's embedded in the aluminum at this point. So now we're going to start. I have a kit here. We're going to drop our new needle in. If I can pick it up. We'll drop our new needle in there. Don't have to press it down, just sit it in there. And I like to take one little drop of oil and put right in the bottom there where the spring goes. 2-stroke oil is probably best. However, a little bit of clean, unused motor oil will be fine. What that's going to do is that's going to hold that spring in place, and it's not going to affect the running or runnability of the engine at all. And now comes the tricky part. We've got to put this all back together now without losing that spring. And we did it. So I'm keeping my thumb on there, holding the spring down, holding that arm down. Okay, so that's that. Generally speaking, that check ball or check valve is fine. I believe this one will be all right. To do a thorough cleaning, you'd want to put it in an ultrasonic cleaner and let it clean for 20 or 30 minutes, and some low-grade solvent. We're going to make sure our screen is clean. And it is. We have solvent passing through it. So now we're going to put the screen back in. And the kit should come with a screen, however this kit didn't have it. And I don't exactly know why. I know that some of these kits are getting harder and harder to get. There's a lot of these Walbro WA carburetors floating around. I wouldn't think they would be that difficult, but it might be. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put our new kit in here. Typically speaking, this flat piece, you have a gasket with some holes in it. Then you have sometimes it's real thin rubber. Sometimes it's this type of material, and I can't tell you what this type of material is. It's almost like a real thin Lexan. That's not Lexan, but some type of material like that. Very thin, very flat. We're going to take the old one. You can see all the goo on the old part. We want to make sure we get this old gasket off. That gasket should be soft and pliable, and it's not. It's hard and brittle. Again, from the fuel. I generally like to take just a small amount of grease. Clean grease. And this does a couple of things. This will hold it in place momentarily while I'm positioning it. I don't want to use an RTV or a silicone product because silicone, as everybody knows, silicone fuels don't mix. This won't affect the running of the engine. There's such a minute amount there, most of it's going to get squeezed out. Go ahead and tighten this down. These Walbro carburetors are good little carburetors. However, like everything else, they're not as good as they once were. By having one screw in the center, they're susceptible to leakage around here. And by leakage, I mean air. You want to make sure that's good and snug. Don't crank it as tight as you can get it, because you will strip something. Now we're going to put this side back together. There is a specific order this goes in. In this case, the gasket goes on first, then your pump. Again, I like to apply a thin layer of grease to the mating surface. It'll hold things in place while I put this together. The other thing it's going to do for me is if I ever have to take this back apart in the near future because of maybe dirty fuel, water, whatever the case may be, it's going to allow that to come off a lot easier. It doesn't take much, just a little bit on there. And while we have this off, we're going to replace our plunger bulb for our primer. We're going to wipe this out, spray it out a little bit. This is a one-way valve here. We don't want to soak this because we can ruin it. I'd like for everybody to say hi to my camera guy, Josh. He's my oldest son. He spends quite a bit of time out here helping me with this stuff. So Josh, if you would say hi.
Hi.
He's my IT guy, I guess you could say. He's my camera guy. So this thing is rebuilt. We want to make sure these are good and snug. We don't want any leakage here because leakage here could and will cause a lean run condition when you tighten these up. Use a crisscross method, a little bit at a time. And that should do it. We're pumping. Alright, guys, gals, hopefully this helps you out. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. At C&J Equipment Repair, small engine repair. Like us, share it, do all the good stuff with it. Thank you.